Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, of a very special guest, a returning guest. His name is John C. Brady, Brady. And if you're watching this on X, Rockfin, or Rumble, you will see his website. It's John C. Brady, PhD, and a D in criminology. He's a licensed forensic psychologist, true crime writer, doctor of criminology, and celebrity analyst. And I had him back on my show in August of 2024. And if you can see this, you can see the cover of his book that we talked about, Psychological DNA, a cold case analysis of who killed Robert F. Kennedy. And today we're going to talk about something that's in the news, something that happened in December, and that is this killing of a healthcare CEO in downtown Manhattan by an unusual character by the name of Luigi Mangione, and how this all covered and how this happened and why it happened. There's a lot of questions, and John's going to help us answer those questions. So, John C. Brady, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks. Thank you for inviting me, William. I'm looking forward to it. It's always a good interview.
Likewise. So, for people who didn't hear our last show, maybe you could do a little bit about your background, your books, your research, your analysis, celebrity analysis, and then kind of what led up. I know this is Mangione is going to be included in your upcoming book. You could talk about that as well.
Okay, well, thank you. My background is as a licensed forensic psychologist here in California, and I'm also a criminologist, kind of a hybrid researcher person, and also a clinician. So over the last 40 years, I've dealt with hundreds of criminal cases, had the chance to represent both the defense and prosecution in court cases, and it was kind of an enjoyable trip to try and unravel why people commit particular crimes when in some cases they don't even realize what their true motivations are. So there's always a buried or hidden phenomenon which relates to these criminal cases. So I've written 7 books. I know you've written about 20 books to your credit, which Cinco 5.
5, yeah, I'm at 5.
Oh, okay. So I looked at your website and they look pretty intriguing. So the books that I've written deal with everything from rich people that steal, shoplifting, murder, people who have been over drugged using pharmaceuticals, psychoactive drugs, which I don't recommend. And then the most recent book that's coming out is a comparison of Lee Harvey Oswald, who's obviously in the news today, with Sirhan and their personality characteristics, their similarities. One of the highlighted characters in my new book called Breakdown, that'll be published by Trine Day, I think in July, if I can get it done. It's a lot of work, as you know, to put together a book. But in that book, I compare Mangione's case to Ted Kaczynski's case, because there's a lot of psychological and criminal commonalities between those two particular offenders. Both offenders were imbued with a sense of kind of social justice or retributive justice, that they were going to right the wrongs in society. Kaczynski, like Mangione, a very bright person, entered Harvard when he was 16 years old, became a professor at UC Berkeley. When I was there in the 70s, I could have even crossed paths with him in the math building when I was doing some research there. So he was the youngest professor at UC Berkeley, I think, in Berkeley's history. He, like Mangione, had this kind of religious savior complex where they're going to, as I said, right all the wrongs in society. They're going to make society correct. They're going to be able to contribute something that nobody else has been able to contribute. So that's kind of the background of the case. With Sirhan, of course, the first book, Psychological DNA, I worked with Bernard Diamond at the School of Criminology at UC Berkeley. He was my advisor. He was my mentor at Berkeley. He was the chief psychiatrist for for the Sirhan defense team.
And also Chapman too, right?
And what?
He worked on the Chapman case too, the Lennon case.
You
Didn't
know,
Bernard done? I'm pretty sure he did as well in
okay,
1980.
okay. Yeah, yeah, that was, like 5 years later with Chapman. I do talk about Chapman also as a particular kind of assassin that had a personality change also. So with the Sirhan case, I had available information concerning what the psychiatric diagnoses were, the confusion in the trial, and then the innumerable trial errors that were made that led to Sirhan's conviction for first-degree murder, which should have never happened. So the current book does highlight in one of the chapters, it highlights the Mangione case, which is obviously intriguing. It's in the news. Everybody has an opinion. And by the way, this is my really non-clinical opinion. I mean, I haven't seen him as a patient, so these are only my theories as to why this young person, 26 years old, would suddenly become a cold-blooded murderer, and the reasons for that. So these are my theories. It's not that I have interviewed him. I'd love to interview him, of course, and do a psychodiagnostic evaluation. But these are just my opinions as to what would change a person from, as you said in the introduction, of being a conforming person, the law-abiding individual who would suddenly change his identity, surrender those factors which kept him on the right side of the law, and then suddenly he shifted his identity. It's my theory that over a period of time, from the time he was in Hawaii, his personality began to change. He began to become alienated from other people. He lived in kind of a commune, the surf break in Honolulu, where there were a group of people that were kind of seekers. They were seeking the truth. That they were kind of also social justice people. Very, very nice group of people, and Mangione was ingratiated into this group. Then suddenly he departed from that. His personality, as characterized in news articles on TMZ channel that did a feature story, and a very thorough feature story on him, that his personality had changed considerably. And my analysis, as I saw it, was to explain how does this happen, and how is his behavior similar to one of his anti-heroes, which was Ted Kaczynski.
Right. He read Ted Kaczynski's book, Industrial Society and Its Future. We know that because he talked about it on his Goodreads page, right?
That's right. He started a book club when he was in Honolulu, and one of the selections was Ted Kaczynski's book that really dealt with revolution and the overthrow of the government because of his ideology. So both were what are called ideology tourists. It's kind of an interesting term because they're seeking an ideology that will explain, in their opinion, what the wrongs are in society. For Kaczynski, of course, he was influenced by the demise of the future based on technology. He's kind of a H.G. Wells time machine person who believed that if you got into the time machine and you move forward in time, you would encounter people who are dumbed down, who are less intelligent, who don't ask the right questions, and they're controlled by kind of a mind force government that tells them what to think. So he saw society's future based on a technological revolution as being evil and at variance with where he wanted to be as a true Luddite, or a person who can't experience change. He wanted everything to remain the same, and society to revert back to a position where he could fit in. So that was his ideology. And for some reason, then Mangione recommends this book, as you said, William, for his book club. And then he becomes ingratiated into Kaczynski's philosophy, which really deals with revolution. He endorses some of Kaczynski's manifesto was 35,000 words. Mangione, post-arrest, wrote his little manifesto, which is like 6 pages long, if that. I can't remember exactly how many pages, but it was very short. But he quotes Kaczynski as saying that the true source of change is going to remain in revolution, which is in part and parcel of the philosophy of change based on the power elite structure of society. That the power elite people, C. Wright Mills and those people that wrote about the unequal justice in society and the militation against poor people by the wealthy people. As Kaczynski saw it, it was the technocrats in society, the professors, the computer people, who were the enemy. For Mangione, the enemy was the power structure, was the power elite structure that was posited in the pharmaceutical industry, where he had personal experience based on back surgery, but that's not the reason that he changed his ideology. His vantage point into changing society as a religious, almost a religious zealot, was to re-identify and reposition himself as a savior of society, and that's where he began to characterize a pharmaceutical company as parasites that had to be eliminated. And in Thompson's case, the CEO of United Healthcare, that he was a parasite that needed to be, air quotes, whacked, air quotes. So he had this seething vitriol against the pharmaceutical companies as one aspect of the capitalistic system, which many neo-Marxist sociologists think is the bottom line for their feelings that society is being controlled by groups of people that shouldn't have the power. Mangione chose the target of Brian Thompson as the victim. He could have chosen anybody, by the way.
Right. He could have chose somebody in Hawaii. Why did he go all the way to New York? And why Thompson? Do we know?
That's right. He could have chose the president of Kaiser Permanente. He could have chose somebody from Blue Cross Blue Shield or another healthcare enterprise. He chose Thompson because he was the CEO. He was the head of the biggest healthcare provider in the country, United Healthcare. Maybe that was one of his motivations, that he wanted to go after the biggest people. Kaczynski also wanted to go after the largest technocrats in society, those people who controlled the computer systems, professors. He bombed UC Berkeley, built math building.
Super talented professors. Gerlertner or Gerlertner was one of the guys' names.
That's right. So his target was ideologically the same as Mangione's,
Right.
although Mangione was aimed at the pharmaceutical companies. When after the crime, interestingly enough, Mangione wrote on 3 of the 9mm rounds. He wrote deny, depose, and delay. And I comment on this. This deny, depose, and delay relate to the strategies in his mind that insurance companies use to deny claims, first of all, then to litigate them, which is to depose people, to challenge their authority or their beliefs that they have a legitimate claim, and then to delay or to not make compensation for legitimate health care claims. So his philosophy was that companies like United Healthcare, as being huge capital-based companies that have billions of dollars, really steal these dollars from the poor people, which is kind of like a Robin Hood phenomenon, where they're stealing from poor people, but they're giving it back to rich people in sort of an inverted Robin Hood situation. So he wanted to he drifted into this identity surrender. Not only did he change his ID, he changed his physical appearance, he changed his mindset, which was very similar to Kaczynski's mindset, that he wasn't the same person. As you started out during the beginning of the interview, yes, he seemed like a normal person. He probably was a balanced person. He probably was law abiding, but in his transformative thinking, what he, in my opinion, what he did not see as being a deviant aspect of his behavior. He, as a matter of fact, saw this as a retributive move in order to rebalance what he saw as an imbalanced society run by power elite bureaucrats like C. Wright Mills wrote about in the 50s, and that Kaczynski wrote about. So he tried to usurp these people's power, delivering the old phrase that we knew from Berkeley: "Power to the back, to power to the people."
Right. It is amazing though. Like he really thought it out. This is a premeditated killer, a thoughtful killer, disguised as thing. Got rid of his cell phone, I believe, so he couldn't be traced, or he thought he couldn't be traced. He made a printed gun, 3D gun.
That's
Like
right.
this is a fake identity. Like he really thought about it. Like this is really an incredible thing. I think I don't know how they identified him, but I guess somebody identified him by his just the simplicity of his forehead. I think
Yeah,
that was it. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's right. I mean, the so he's charged with first degree murder in New York. He's also charged federally with stalking, with and charged in Pennsylvania. So he's charged in three different jurisdictions for different criminal charges. The charges in New York under Alvin Bragg will take precedence, and that case will move forward. The other cases, the Pennsylvania case and New York case will remain, will go after these particular two jurisdictions. But you're right that he created the major part of his gun was 3D printed. The receiver he bought through the mail, a mail order. Then he 3D printed the rest of the gun, the moving part and the barrel. He 3D printed a suppressor, silencer. He went to New York about November 26th, more than a week before the assassination, which was on December 4th. So he went there, he stalked Thompson. He knew his whereabouts. He knew he was going to this meeting, so he's charged with stalking. The bottom line to this case, if you're the defense attorney, is to grapple with the kind of questions that we're talking about here today. What was his mental state of mind when he engaged in this behavior? And does he meet all the elements of the New York statutes for first degree murder?
Right. I mean, what do you think? Does he meet those statutes?
No, I think that there's mitigating factors that reduce his responsibility for his behavior based on a concept that you and I talked about before, which is diminished capacity. So the diminished capacity uh, cases built up in California, basically by my advisor at Berkeley, Bernard Diamond. He went through a series of cases from the Gorshin case all the way to the the Bassett case, which was a double murder, very similar to the Menendez murders, by the way, but 30 years before that. So he clearly outlined that there is a, rather than using the antiquated principle of all sane means you're responsible and insane means you're not responsible for your behavior, like in the Hinckley case, for example, that there is a continuum of responsibility from not being responsible to totally being responsible, and that people's behaviors is parceled out along that continuum, which means that their capacity to form criminal intent is really diminished at a certain point when you compare that with a person does not have these mitigators, it does not have these kinds of psychological issues that Mangione had. And with Kaczynski, he was offered the federal analog to diminished capacity, and he rejected it because he didn't want anybody to think that he was mentally ill, which is a denial system, which was very similar to Sirhan's philosophy that he told his 7 doctors, including Dr. Diamond, that he wasn't mentally ill. You don't label me that. You can't prove it. I'm not crazy situation. Kaczynski felt the same way, although underneath he knew that something was definitely wrong with his behavior when he started the bombing people, injuring 3 people, 23 people, and killing 3 or 4 people, I think. So with Mangione, the prosecution, Alvin Bragg, has to show that there is criminal intent, that he has mens rea, that he has a guilty mind, that he was of clear mind and able to form criminal intent. My opinion is that there are vitiating circumstances here that lead me to believe that he was somehow transformed into this new ideology that changed his rational pattern of thinking that fits with the diminished capacity defense, which is available in New York.
Right. So it's like something changed. Like it's almost like he went through this process of self-isolation that Kaczynski did. You know, they went like Kaczynski had some random cabin in the middle of nowhere in Montana, and then Mangione goes to Hawaii and breaks off from his family. I think before the murders, is like you wrote, his family sent out a missing persons report. Like, where is this guy?
Yeah,
And it is interesting. Like you also mentioned brain fog. Like this could be a result of a personality change from COVID or something like that. And I actually remember
yeah,
Kaczynski had I think he had an almost near death experience with like yellow fever or scarlet fever or something like that
yeah.
when he was a kid. That may have influenced his personality. What do you think about that?
That's right. With Mangione, he told his college friends that after his COVID vaccination, now obviously there's so much controversy concerning this COVID sequelae, concerning the unwanted side effects of that particular drug. But he said he felt in a fog. He felt that his thinking. This is when he was a senior in college. That his thinking was somehow clouded, and he wasn't the same person again. So this kind of ties into my theory that he changed his identity based on the constant bombardment of these negative messages that almost in a semi-delusional sense that he was the savior, that he was going to be able to change things. Now, if the brain fog secondary to the COVID vaccination and that ties into his isolation, as you mentioned, his sequestering himself, his leaving his peer group in Hawaii, his estrangement from his family. So in my view, with a lot of people that I've studied, including Sirhan, they suddenly drift into this altered personality or state of awareness where their judgmental reasoning is so impacted that what they perceive as being good is actually perceived by the greater society as really being bad. Sirhan wrote in his diary, RFK must die, that he was doing the right thing, that RFK had to be eliminated because of his allegiance to Israel, and they were going to get military planes from RFK in order to bomb the Palestinians, his people. So he had this ideology that was so self-absorbed, it changed his mental status. And I think in a similar way, Mangione over time began to bombard himself with these messages supported by the Kaczynski manifesto that's laced with revolution, violence, political overthrow to justify his behavior. So it's no accident that Mangione connects to Kaczynski's manifesto, and then he writes his own manifesto. Then there's some pretty incriminating statements that Mangione leaves in his statements, that this guy had to go, that they are parasites on society, and that Brian Thompson had to be whacked. These are very incriminating statements. However, put within the framework of somebody whose mind has been changed, who is into almost this cult-like ideology where he changes his thinking. And I've studied other groups where this kind of surrender of identity takes place, where people think that they're really doing the right thing, whether it's the survivalists who were in San Diego, California, who thought that Heaven's Gate, that this guy was he felt he could save humanity by convincing other people that their mission was to be rescued by UFO people. He then ingratiated himself. He converted these people based on his philosophy that he knew the true way, and the true way was to commit mass suicide, and that's exactly what they did. So the ideology is similar to other cult ideologies, where you don't necessarily have to have a group of people, but once you start down this trail of, as I said, this anti-Robin Hood, where you think you're doing good, whereas you're actually committing a criminal act, can reduce your capacity to think as an ordinary person might think, and that could tie into the defense for Mangione. I don't see, as a matter of fact, I don't see what else that his defense attorney, who's a lead defense attorney, I don't see anything else that she can really rely on, except getting the charges reduced to second-degree murder. Even first-degree manslaughter in New York might be more applicable than first-degree murder.
Right. He also had that depersonalization thing that a lot of murderers have, where they're parasites, right? They're not a guy with a wife and 2 kids and, working a job. So he's like, sees them as something else, as phonies or something like that. Almost like, it's odd too, because I've been doing a lot of research in Catcher in the Rye. And it's like, this all takes place where like Chapman was. It's Central Park. He leaves stuff in Central Park. It's pretty close to the Dakota. It's weird that he flew all the way there. Did you see his book list? Did he have Catcher in the Rye in there? I wonder.
No.
He acts kind of like...
But he well could have had. I mean, like Chapman did. But Chapman's situation I outlined somewhat in my book, Psychological DNA, as an identity switch, where he over-identified with the victim. I mean, he wanted to be John Lennon. He said in his quotes, "Oh, how wonderful it would be to be John Lennon. To be a star." So he wanted to identify with him. He wanted to become John Lennon. So he goes from Hawaii. He starts a rock band, as you know. He marries a Japanese woman like Yoko Ono. So he's emulating his hero all along. And then suddenly, when John Lennon says that the Beatles are more important than Jesus, this really triggers a response in him, that because he's a born again Christian, that this is evil. Then he flies to New York twice, as a matter of fact, stalks him, and then murders him, justifying it. It's very, very similar to what we have with Mangione, justifying it with this strange logic that he's really doing good in eliminating a person that represents an ideology that he can't tolerate, which is Jesus is more important than John Lennon is.
Right. Yeah, this is his review of, this is Mangione's review of industrial science society and its future. But
Yeah,
like, he uses weird terms. He had the balls to recognize that peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere. So he's got this radicalization mentality, and the same use of the word Luddite, right?
yeah.
So it's they are more accurately seen as those of an extreme political revolutionary. So maybe that's what he got radicalized somewhere, maybe at that surf break, or hanging out with people away from his family, or the influence of his friends. Like if he goes through this brain fog or whatever, and goes through this personality change, it really is incredible.
Well, yeah, it's incredible looking at it from the outside, but analyzing the various parts, putting them together, his ideological tourism, that I call it in my article on Mangione. This is not atypical for a true believer, for somebody who becomes so imbued with this religious belief system that they're correct. So he's not the only one. So with his defense fund up to $500,000 or whatever it is, he strikes a note with these other people who have, just take it at face value, they have the same kind of ideological bent that he does. It's society, that Marxism is really the way to go, that there should be a redistribution of the wealth, that the power elite structure is controlling people, which is similar to Kaczynski stuff that Mangione inculcates into his own belief system and justifies wrong as right. And what he does is completely satisfactory to the outcomes of what the revolution ought to be. And the in a sense, he's a revolutionary, and he strikes a note with these other people that contribute to his defense fund. And he even comes out and thanks them yesterday for contributing. Well, that's okay. I mean, his family doesn't want to go broke, with a super high priced New York attorney. I mean, that attorney isn't going to work for free. So in a sense, he tries to justify his behavior based on the fact that he has this anonymous audience out there who also may believe, and you got to take them at their face value, they believe in revolution, that society is controlled by people at the top that really don't care about the people at the bottom, and especially with the millions of people who suffer at the hands of the healthcare system, who deny, depose, and delay paying medical claims.
Right. It is incredible. He became kind of an anti-hero. There's a lot of sympathy
Right.
for this guy. That's the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country, is healthcare costs or healthcare bills. So,
Yeah, that's right, William. And there's an interesting concept called hybristophilia. It's a paraphilia like pedophilia, but that's with sex with children. It's an identification process where people identify with the criminal elements in society. Actually, it affects women probably 80% to 20% compared to men, where they identify with the anti-hero in society and set them up as a kind of savior to whatever the goal that they are pushing at the particular time. So this hybristophilia is tied into the followers that contribute to Mangione's defense fund.
right. No, it's incredible. And it's self-sustaining. So Kaczynski becomes a hero. Mangione finds Kaczynski And now it's just going to perpetuate this kind of archetype through our society of the kind of murderous Robin Hood
That's
who
right.
goes, yeah. So it's actually really dangerous. Like there's other means by which, like what he keeps saying in his writings, this totalism, like there's everything's been tried and it hasn't worked, right? So like
Yeah.
they're not listening, the oil companies aren't listening.
Yeah, that's right.
This kind
That's
of
right.
fatalism or something like that in their kind of outlook, like violence is the only choice. This is it.
Yeah, it's a neo-Marxist approach in my view, where it goes back to the writings of the neo-Marxist sociologists in the 1950s, where they see society as being unfairly directed by a power elite structure at the top, and then they steal from the people at the bottom in order to make themselves, more wealthy. So Mangione bought into this, as I said, his accepting these anti-social attitudes of violence, of revolution, of overthrow, of the unequal means in society to get illegal ends, the Machiavellian uh, issue. He seems to tie into the Machiavellian philosophy that the ends do justify the means, so it doesn't really matter if you have to take out a healthcare provider. And Mangione is so imbued with this, he has a sense of pride. He certainly doesn't deny that he did it. He certainly doesn't eschew the fact that he was caught. Maybe he's not too happy about being caught because he tried to escape. But
Right.
but he is so inculcated with these negative feelings that it's my opinion that it really it changes or it mitigates his rational thought structure, making him less responsible for the criminal charges of first degree murder, leaving the possibility of other New York defenses available, such as diminished capacity or other incomplete defenses that will show that he's not totally responsible for first degree murder. So there's other defenses in New York. Extreme emotional duress is another defense available in New York. So that may be accessed by the attorney. I mean, the attorney's job is to get this reduced to second degree murder and maybe plea bargain it so he goes away for 15. He's going somewhere. He's going away. So, but nobody wants to see this guy get the death penalty. After the New York case, the charges in Pennsylvania are rather minor that aren't going to lead to the death penalty, and the same thing probably with the federal case.
Right. Yeah, no, it's incredible. He he's in a lot of trouble, but I think that they also added a terrorism charge to him. So I think he's a lot like
Yeah.
Kaczynski in the sense that they wanted to have it's not just the murder of this guy, it's to send a message to the larger culture, right? That these people are out
Yeah.
there, right? Because Kaczynski got away with it for a long time. So
17 years.
yeah,
Yeah, but the message that's being conveyed isn't being heard by the right people because he has this following of people that identify with his manifesto, that these are parasites on society and they must be eliminated. So whatever the terrorist charge is, or stalking, or any other charges that they might bring forward, they sort of have a paradoxical effect that they spurn on the people that believe Mangione is a hero or an anti-hero at best, representing their interest to get back at society, because society ought to be run by the people rather than an elite oligarchy of people at the top. Stuff
right.
stuff that you and I learned when we were at Berkeley. I mean, there was a lot of that Marxism that was going on. That
Absolutely. It's still around. It's still
it's
around.
it's yes,
So what do you see, like how does this kind of this archetype, how do people stop this from happening? people going out and taking the law into their own hands and trying to make a point. Like so many of these killers really are, and a lot reminds me of like the right wing white supremacists. They always justify their acts with some kind of manifesto and try to seek illicit sympathy from the public. Like how do people recognize this? How do they get help? How does this be allayed? How does it get minimized in our society? What do you think?
Well, I think it goes back to the educational system that if we are propagating the Marxism in school, that society is unfair and needs to be overthrown, and that capitalism is an evil giant that suppresses everyone, that then you come out at the end that capitalism must be overthrown. So I think it goes to the educational system that children, young children in high school and college and university kids are taught this Marxist ideology that the nature of a particular American society is evil from the beginning. So you have the original sin that you can't escape. So you need to counter that situation with a balanced view that capitalism has probably contributed more good to the world than any other social economic system, and get them to believe that, rather than a Marxist takeover and a revolution is the way to go.
People think that this isn't a timely issue. This is a retweet from Elon Musk today saying radical leftists on Reddit are planning to bring firearms to protest in DC while claiming it's time, it's class war, deny, defend, depose.
There you go. We just talked about that.
Yeah, this is it. This is kind of the
You
Mangione's going to be hero. He became a hero with a lot of little subsets of groups, and this is the persistence of his act that took place December 4th, 2024, not that long ago. But this
yeah,
was literally retweeted by Elon Musk. He has 218 million followers on Twitter.
it's
So when
more
he
than,
retweets
more than we
something,
do. It's a lot,
yeah, like
a lot
by a
more than.
factor of 85,000 or whatever. But like this is very influential. When he's retweeting this, it's coming into the public consciousness. But
Yeah,
this is the like Marxist view, right?
exactly. But
Militancy, class war.
what you have to do is to get your tweets out, because you're on the cutting edge of at least one particular theory of why this guy committed this particular crime. I mean, there are no other that I know of. There are no other psychiatric interpretations of how this guy lost his mind, how his identity switch changed, the transformation of his personality into the deny, depose, and delay situation. Nobody has addressed that. As I said, Harvey Levin did a great show on TMZ. Beautiful show. Spent a lot of money tracking down Mangione's whereabouts in Hawaii when he went to Thailand, went to a shooting range. Very, very good show. As a matter of fact, I would like to talk to Harvey Levin. The missing part in the TMZ story, of course, is that there's no psychiatric interpretation of what made this guy turn the corner, of what made him become this radical, almost religious zealot who wants to overthrow the power structure in the United States. And he thinks that one of the, as you mentioned before, the oil companies, airlines, transportation systems, and the healthcare system, which, as you said, is a major cause for bankruptcy, and it causes a lot of people angst. So
Family angst, all kinds of relationships break up, just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the point is that you're on the cutting edge of a different explanatory viewpoint and a vantage point into a window into this kid's mind that I haven't seen portrayed before. That's why I wrote the part in the chapter and compared him to Kaczynski. The facts of the crime are pretty well known. The national, international media has that down pat, but there is no psychiatric interpretation of why this guy became a complete revolutionary and his Machiavellian in the sense that what he felt he was doing, his end was justified by the means, and he's proud of it. I mean, he's
Right.
like a revolutionary with his fist raised in the air, saying "Power to the people." This is the same kind of a guy that he is. He suddenly transformed himself, and the news media has gone, radio silent since
Right.
January 1st or so. That's because the attorney wants to put a lid on it, and nobody has really conjectured anything concerning this guy's mental state and what happened to him, how he surrendered his pre-crime identity and became this infused revolutionary who in a Machiavellian sense, could justify his behavior, and he seems proud of it. But that's consistent with a person who has really lost their value system.
Right. No, it's really incredible. I think you'll hear him as kind of like a Robin Hood underground figure for a long time, unfortunately. And I think it's
That's right.
to the education system and larger society we're in. John, we're at the 45-minute mark. Is there anything you'd like to add? Anything I missed? Or
Time flies when you're having fun, huh?
Yeah, I mean this is a really interesting topic and an important topic, because I think you're going to see copycats, just like he copycatted Kaczynski. And it's scary too. These are intelligent people. These are not, these are people who think thinking's aberrant, I guess. I mean, of course, but like they're thoughtful. Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add, or?
Well, no, I want to thank you for the podcast. It's always nice to be with you, and I want to re-emphasize the fact that your podcast is one of the only ones that I know that have really explored this case along psychiatric criminological lines to get to the point, to understand, to unravel this guy's psyche from a distance, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not making any definitive diagnoses, although I say that he could have verged on schizotypal personality type, which is a non-psychotic process that does reduce your level of awareness to morality. It does suggest certain kinds of paranoid tendencies, that they're all after me and I have to strike back. So I think it's a credit to you and your podcast as one of the first that I know of in the country, to expose the psychology of Luigi Mangione, not just the type of gun he had when he got caught at McDonald's, all the facts that we know. These are facts, not in evidence, concerning his psychiatric makeup that's so complex that it needs somebody perhaps of my background and training as a criminologist and forensic psychologist to try and put the pieces back together again. So I thank you for the
opportunity. Thank you for being here, and thanks for sharing all your thoughts. And your book is coming up. So we talked about psychological DNA last time. So you have another book coming out later on this year, right?
Yes, it's called Breakdown, which is a comparison of Lee Harvey Oswald's behavior with Sirhan's behavior, and it's very interesting to see the kind of parallel psychological variables that impinge on both of these people, that lead them to the point that they have pointed guns at the Kennedy brothers. So it's a comparison of their developmental backgrounds, particularly in relationship to Oswald's mother, who was a driving force of more or less evil in his life from the time he was a child, where she slept with him until he was almost 12 years old. So that's kind of an intriguing phenomenon to compare these two people. Those two people then are compared with the Hillside Strangler case, which is a really intriguing case also. And then that's compared with Kaczynski, and then I added Mangione. So that breakdown should be published by Trine Day Publishers, hopefully in maybe July.
Great. So when that book gets published, come back on. We'll talk about that new book too. So I'd
Uh,
love to have you back about that. But
no,
people can find your website is, if you're watching this, it's johncbrady.com. www.johncbrady.com, correct?
that's right. And the book's available at Barnes and Noble bookstores. It's available Amazon. It's available at Trine Day Publisher, TRINEDAY Publishers, or at your local bookstore. We just finished a book tour of Southern California right before the fire, and it was 4 different locations in Barnes and Noble throughout Southern California, and it was right close to Altadena. It was
Wow.
yeah, it was. So we were there in November, right before the fire. So
Wow. So you saw it when it was still standing. I don't know
yeah,
if Altadena or Pacific Palisades will return to their former state. The way the things are run here in in this state, I don't even know what's
yeah,
going on.
it's unbelievable. But the Barnes and Noble book tour was just wonderful. Met lots of people, attorneys like yourself, psychologists, criminologists, professional fighters, boxers. I mean, it was just it was just a lot of fun, and I'd like to do that with the breakdown book that's coming out in July, and we'll see what the publisher has to say about that.
Great. And then the place to reach out to you is through your website. There's a contact tab too, right? So if anybody has any other
That's
questions,
right, or through the publisher.
or through trineday.com, right? So people who've listened to my show, they know Trine Day. I have so many Trine Day authors. I have another Trine Day author tomorrow too, as a matter of fact. But
Wonderful.
yeah, so John, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and your
No,
psychological analysis. Again, the author's name is John C. Brady, and I will put a link to his website. And we kind of talked about information that'll be in his new book coming out 2025. Full title is Breakdown: A Criminal Analysis of Lee Harvey Oswald and Sirhan Sirhan. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks so much, John.
wonderful. Thank you, William.
Stay
We'll
there.
talk again.